This is where, like, as a first time mom doing labor, it honestly like freaked me out. It was an experience that I didn't like talking about. Like, we can't actually control it as much as we think we can. And it was so much more enjoyable than Amira's was. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Beck and thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm doing something different today and I'm going to do a sit down, coffee and chat about my labor / birth story. So being in the middle of both my girls' birthdays, I thought it was time to sit down and share my experience, because I remember when I was pregnant, especially with Amira not knowing what was to come, I went on YouTube and watched a whole heap of different stories because I just wanted to gather as much information as I could, see how different every labor story was so that I could prepare myself, I guess, as close as I could to being prepared on what was about to happen. So I really just wanted to sit down and share my story so that if there is someone who is watching this who is pregnant and they're in the same position of me, then I'm hoping that this will help you in your journey of, just getting yourself mentally ready for it. The thing that I've definitely found is the more birth / labor stories I've watched, the more I realize that it isn't as easy as people make it out to be. Yes, our bodies are made to do this, but I am so thankful that I was born in a time and place where medical assistance could be provided. So if you want to hear my birth story, please click that thumbs up, stick around, because things were definitely a roller coaster ride and I've had 2 labors, so stick around. Okay, the best place to start this story is right at the beginning with the birth of my firstborn. I was super blessed to have gone in the private sector when it came to giving birth to Amira and Zoe. And when it came to my 40-week appointment with Amira, I said to my doctor that I had had enough. My anxiety was getting really high. I'd been experiencing Braxton Hicks for like a month on my body. I knew I was getting prepared, but nothing was kind of kick-starting it. I had a stretch and sweep, I think, twice, but nothing really like pushed it over. And so we decided then and there at my 40-week appointment that I was going to get induced and we were going to do it on the Friday. And so we went up to the hospital Friday night and I got the gel inserted and kind of like labored naturally throughout the night at the hospital with Mick by my side. In the morning, nothing had really progressed into active labor, and so my doctor came in and she popped my waters and we were officially in active labor. Now, my birth plan, as much as it could be for a first-time mum, was I wanted to see what my body could do, how far I could do it, natural, and then what I would do after that. I really wanted to do like a water birth experience, and the reason why we picked the hospital was because it does offer that experience for you. We filled up the tub, I hopped in, I did like 1 contraction in the water and I couldn't handle it. I really needed grounding rather than floating, which was such a shame because I know that I've dislocated both my knees, and the knee that I dislocated in the ocean hurt less because gravity took the pressure off my joints. So I was kind of hoping that that same theory would be applied for labor and it would be a lot easier to handle, but that wasn't my story. So we went on to plan B. Plan B was that I love having a shower. It is like my place of comfort and refuge. Whenever I'm sick, stressed, anything, I go have a shower. So I hopped in the shower on a medicine ball, and by this stage I definitely had happy gas because I really need to focus on my breathing and I needed just that pain edge to be like cut off for me. So I was in the water, in the shower, on the ball with my happy gas, and we stayed there for a couple of hours. And Michael was such a trooper. He stayed in there with me doing like formations of water spraying on my back and coaching me through it all, which was so good. It got to about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I really needed to push. I felt like I needed to push. So the midwife said, we'll call your doctor in, we'll do an observation and see how things are progressing, how you're dilating, etc. And it was really painful to hop on the bed. I really just couldn't lie back. It was like agonizing pain, not like contraction pain, but agonizing. And I hopped on the bed, and when my doctor did the observation, she saw that Amira was head down, but her spine was against my spine, so she was facing the wrong way in that terms. So we had to try and flip her. By this stage, I must say I was exhausted, both mentally and physically. I really thought that the end was near, like my body wanted to push, and I was told that that was just because of the position that Amira was in, and I didn't know what to do. And the gas wasn't really working for me anymore, and my obstetrician just suggested in a really polite and supportive way that my labor still had a couple more hours to go, and as much as it wasn't part of my plan, had I thought of an epidural. And I sat there and I did another contraction, and I was like, yes, please go get the anesthetist. So I have no idea how long it was between that contraction and the anesthetist coming. But I remember looking up at the roof thinking this pain was unbearable, that I just wanted to pass out because I was just done, physically done. And I, at the same time, was thinking about how much this epidural was gonna hurt, because a needle going into your spine isn't the most enticing of offers. Anyway, the guy came in, I bent forward, told him where my contraction was, and then when it stopped, he inserted it, and oh my goodness, this was the best decision that I made throughout my labor. Even though every other decision was good decisions in the moment, this one was just the one that I needed at that time and place, because after the epidural kind of washed over, I wasn't in any more pain. We were able to, because I was so relaxed, get me into positions that allowed Amira to flip, and she ended up getting into the right spot. So we then got to the final stages of pushing, and Amira was just very stubborn to come out. I had seen other videos and read articles when people had epidurals to like hold onto a towel, so that when they were told to push, they could grab onto the towel, the piece of material, and use their abs to kind of really push into it. And I'm so thankful that I heard about that, because I really needed to give it my all with Amira, because she definitely wasn't coming out by herself. In the end, my obstetrician said, we have a couple more pushes and then you're gonna have to think about a cesarean. And this is where, like, as a first time mom doing labor, it honestly like freaked me out. I went from like having a natural birth to like a water birth to like doing it in the shower to end up getting an epidural to now having to think about potentially getting a cesarean. And it's not that cesareans are bad, it's just so much change in such a short amount of time, and you're thinking about you, and you're thinking about your baby, and you're just thinking about everything, and split-second decisions have to get made. And I said, you know, is there anything to help up to that? And she suggested that we could use the vacuum to like get Bob out, and she put it on my arm and showed me the pressure, the suction of what it would be on top of Bob's head. And I asked for the pros and the cons, and she told me everything, and I said, okay, let's just go for it. And so we were doing that, and she said, okay, you're starting to get exhausted, Bob's starting to get into distress. And I said, just give me one more push. And so we did one final push, and my doctor helped me so much, and Amira was born with no complications. She had a bit of an egghead from just the longness and having the vacuum helping her get out. But thankfully, she was all safe and sound. So that was my first experience, and to be quite honest, it was an experience that I didn't like talking about. I didn't want to share it with anyone. I felt like I had done something wrong, because, you know, it's my body, and I wanted to be able to birth Amira in such like a relaxing, natural way, and it didn't happen the way that I thought it was going to happen. But then now I definitely have perspective that I am so blessed that Amira just came safe and healthy, and that I was fine. I had a couple of stitches, but other than that, like, my post recovery was really plain smooth as sailing afterwards. So that was my first birth experience, and it wasn't the most pleasant of experiences. But in saying that, we went back for number 2, so it didn't completely scar me. The blessing is that you kind of forget about it most of the time. And then we fell pregnant with Zoe, and I said to Michael, this time round, my birth plan is once I'm in active labor, I'm just getting an epidural. Because I think the biggest thing that kind of just put me off labor and having kids was the pain. I am like hypersensitive to touch, and feeling that sort of pain where I just wanted to pass out, like I'd had enough of it, wasn't the most enjoyable experience, to say the least. Which I'm not saying birth is enjoyable, but I feel like some of the people I've spoken to definitely had like the manpower and the strength to just do it as natural as they could. Me, on the other hand, I recognize my weaknesses and strength, and feeling labor in all its glory was not for me. So 2 years later, we were at the hospital with Zoe being heavily pregnant, and once again, due to like family circumstances and my mental health, I opted to get induced again. But this time, I kind of knew that my body was definitely getting ready, and I went on a bed rest prescribed by me because I wanted to like wait as long as I could with Zoe before getting her out. So by the time we hopped up to the hospital, I was like 4 centimeters dilated already, and so my waters got popped, and the hospital that I went to was really hilly, and so one of the midwives suggested that we just go for a walk up and down the hill to do some lunges every time I had a contraction, just to really open up the birth canal and get Bob's head down, and to use the stairs, like all those sorts of things that we all know help progress labor. So we did that, we went on a walk, came back, and I was in active labor. It was so crazy that it happened that fast. Literally, as I was walking to the birth suite, I had a full-blown contraction, and I looked at Mick and I was like, I don't want to do this again. All of Amira's birth just like came to the front of my mind, and Mick said, it's okay, we're doing an epidural. And like, all of a sudden I was like, yeah, that's right, we're having an epidural, it's fine. So by the time we hopped in, I think it was like maybe an hour between when I went into the birthing suite and when the anaesthetist came. I had the happy gas, which, reflecting on my births, I don't think I used the happy gas properly in Amira's birth, because when I sucked that first proper suck with Zoe, it like fully washed over me, and it really helped me to like breathe through the crescendo of the contraction, which I don't know whether it was from experience of already having done it or the fact that I just wasn't using it properly. It was definitely more helpful second time around. Then the anaesthetist came, I got my epidural. This time it was a lot better. I felt like with Amira, I kind of like had a block and like I couldn't feel anything from my waist down. With Zoe, I could feel when I was having a contraction, it was just pressure. Like there was no associated pain, it was just a tightening, which was so good, because when it came to having to push for Zoe, I knew that I needed to push. Like I knew I had entered that stage of labor and I had full control of like everything. I needed a bit of assistance to like hold my leg up, but not as much as when I did it with Amira. And this time around we used like different ways to get Zoe over my coccyx, because that was definitely the hardest thing, was getting over my tailbone. And then once that happened, it was a completely different birth, like so much easier, which was so good. And I know that they say like the more births you have, the more your body like knows what it's doing, the easier they are for you. Like it was shorter in time, but I honestly believe it was because once I had that epidural at the start, my body was relaxed. It could dilate, efface, do everything it needed to do. Mick and I were just saving our strength and energy so that when it came to pushing, I could give it all that I needed to. And it was so much more enjoyable than Amira's was. And the whole reason why I am sharing this is because I just want to put it out there that it doesn't matter what your birth story is. It doesn't matter whether you have pain relief or whether you need to have a cesarean, like at the end of the day, as long as our bubs are delivered healthy, safe, and sound, then that's all that matters. We shouldn't be scoring each other on whether or not it was a natural birth and they were able to push through it, or whether they needed happy gas or an epidural or whatever. As long as our baby is delivered safely, that's all that should matter. But the main thing is to know your body, to know your limitations. Don't feel like you have to prove anything. I felt with Amira that I needed to prove that I could do it naturally because my body was made for this, because, you know, I don't know, I wanted to have that badge of honor, I guess. But at the end of the day, we have these experiences to share with one another because there are other people out there who have had similar experiences to us. And I don't ever want people to feel like they should be ashamed because their birth experience didn't go the way that they thought it would. Like, we can't actually control it as much as we think we can. But I am so thankful and so blessed that I live in a time and a place where modern medicine exists, because I feared that I probably would have died with Amira because I was exhausted and she was going into distress. Like, it just wasn't a happy occasion. But the blessing in all of this is that both my girls are happy, safe, and sound, and that for me personally, it gave me the ability to reflect on what worked with me in my first birth to make my second birth so much more enjoyable for me, for Michael, and just overall, really. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to stick around by hitting that subscribe button. Here on my channel, I upload family vlogs so that you can be part of our family, but I also upload parent tips, tricks, and hacks every Friday. And I'll see you in the next video.